Russia's prisons are not just about punishment. They're the places that test the last limits of how human being survives. Imagine being locked inside a cell where freezing winds struck through cracked walls, or where guards hit you with an iron fist, and freedom just became a dream. Today, we're going to tell you about the inside Russia's most inhumane prisons, from the brutal Black Dolphin, where prisoners are treated like dangerous animals, to the remote Siberian camps, where a small frostbite could mean death. Each one has its own history, isolation, and cruelty that would easily shake a normal person. But, do these prisons really serve justice, or are they just for punishment? We will find out everything here in this video. Hit the subscribe button, press the bell icon, and stick around, because everything is about to change now. Black Dolphin. There is a prison in the Orenburg region, near the Kazakhstan border, with such a horrible reputation that even lifelong criminals are hesitant to mention its name. The prison's official name is Penal Colony No. 6, although it is often known as Black Dolphin Prison. The moniker refers to the frightening Black Dolphin monument that prisoners created and placed near the entrance. It feels like a warning before you even walk in. This jail houses approximately 700 of Russia's most dangerous offenders who have committed crimes that most other criminals would consider minor. The location isn't new, it's been around for a while. According to records, it has existed since at least 1745, when it was primarily used to house convicts sentenced to hard labor. Following Pugachev's rebellion in 1773, it became a detention facility for robbers and insurgents. Fast forward to now, or more accurately, after 2000, and it has evolved into a modern fortress, a last option for those whom the Russian system has given up on. Black Dolphin's extremeness stems not only from its past, but also from the way it is run. Inmates dwell in cells that feel like cages inside cages. There are 3 layers of steel doors, cameras that track every movement, and guards that go around every 15 minutes. There is no room for privacy or sense of freedom. What about the rules? Very harsh. In prison, you can only say yes sir to guards and cannot even look them in the eyes. It's all about control, even in minor details. The everyday routine is where it actually affects you. Imagine having to stand for 16 hours a day. During scheduled breaks, you can only sit or lie down. The lights remain on all night so the guards can keep an eye on things. And every time a prisoner is relocated, it's like a ritual. They're blindfolded, tied, and bent over at the waist so they don't know where they are. It isn't so much about walking as it is about removing all control. Food? We are barely making it. Soup is served 4 times per day. That's it, over and again. There's no comfort, flavor, or variety, just enough to keep the body moving but never enough to make it feel nice. Prisoners are allowed around 90 minutes of exercise per day in what is essentially a large outdoor cage. During this process, their cells are examined for items that they should not have. Following that, the cycle of standing, waiting, and existing resumes. People frequently ask whether these places are about justice or something worse. Black Dolphin does not appear to be a prison intended to change or fix people. It appears to be a mechanism that slowly erases anyone tossed within DOT. If this is how a jail breaks the strongest men alive, what does this say about the institution that created it? Vladimir Central. Vladimir Central Prison is located around 160 kilometers northeast of Moscow, buried away like a gloomy remnant of the past. This prison is one of Russia's oldest, having been established in 1783. Yes, Empress Catherine II approved it, and what happens after that? It has basically just stood there, watching hundreds of years of instability and power battles pass past. This prison housed everyone who the Russian overlords considered to be the enemy. Things worsened further in 1906, when the location was formally designated as Vladimir Central. At that time, it resembled a political prison. And what happened once the Bolsheviks grabbed power? It was no longer just another jail, it was one of the first special-purpose jails, or politicilators. The strategy was simple but frightening. Put those who opposed the new administration in cells, keep them out of sight, and ensure they couldn't stir problems outside. Stalin integrated it into a much bigger network of camps and prisons where dangerous state criminals were committed. The list of inmates over time reads like a history book of those who fought back. Spies, rebels, foreign agents, nationalists, and even family members of the Soviet elite all breached the laws. There were also renowned persons present, such as Francis Gary Powers, an American U-2 pilot who was shot down during the Cold War. Joseph Stalin's son Vasily Stalin was also thrown in. When you consider Jewish dissidents, activists, and anyone else the government deemed a problem, you can see why this location became so well known. What actually distinguished Vladimir Central was not just the names of the residents, but also how they were treated. The conditions were dreadful, as if they were designed to be. Prisoners were confined in solitary confinement and constantly monitored. Guards aimed to break people down both emotionally and physically, not only punish them. Writers who lived through it, such as Anatoly Marchenko, created works like My Testimony that revealed the truth. That book ensured that everyone understood what was going on behind those walls. Now let's talk about the location itself. At its peak, the prison housed over 1,200 prisoners. It was Russia's largest for a long time. It wasn't simply for minor offenders. It was a fortress for the worst of the worst with strict security. There were mobsters, killers, repeat offenders, and men serving life terms in there. These men could spend decades in prison with no hope of ever being released. For many of them, Vladimir Central was not a prison. This was the end of the road. So the true question is whether Vladimir Central was simply a prison or a disguised weapon of control. Polar Owl Karp is a small town located in the frigid north, approximately 60 kilometers above the Arctic Circle. And hiding there? One of the most remote and toughest prisons in Russia. They name it the Polar Owl. The official name is Penal Colony Number 18. However, Polar Owl is a far superior name. It's cold, attentive, and extremely frightening. It's the type of setting where the land is part of the punishment, as if it's cooperating with the guards. Karp's past makes matters worse. The Soviet Gulag system gave birth to the location. In 1961, inmates were brought in to help build the Salakhard-Igarka Railway. The camp served as the settlement's focal point. So when you see Polar Owl now, it is more than just another prison. It's as if the old Soviet system of forced work, torture, and silence still exists. And the cold, gosh, it's real. On the worst days, it's minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. It seems as if knives are cutting into your flesh just to get outside. However, it is more than just bad weather for the captives. They are being utilized to combat the cold. Prisoners are sometimes forced to stand outside for half an hour or more wearing only flimsy garments. They did not move, clap their hands, or try to warm up their bodies. Simply stand there and freeze until you feel your body shutting down. It's punishment passed off as nature. And then there's water. Doesn't it sound dangerous? However, water is used as a weapon. When someone defies the rules, guards employ water cannons. They do not just spray one individual, they saturate everyone. Consider how it would feel to be standing in the Arctic wind and getting soaked with frigid water. It is not only harmful to your health, but it also has a negative impact on your thinking. Because every prisoner now understands that one mistake can have far-reaching consequences. People who are terrified of such things gnaw away at one another. And don't assume summer makes things simpler. Nope, this summer is its own version of torment. When the ice melts, many mosquitoes and flies bite. You cannot even swat them away without getting into trouble. If you move too quickly or attempt to hide, the guards may use the water cannons again. You must pick between being eaten alive by bugs or freezing in water. There's no way to win. But what truly seals the deal is how far it is from anything else. You cannot get away from it, literally. Where would you go if you managed to get out? There is tundra in every way, and the cold will kill you before you reach civilization. Because of the distance, it's also an excellent hiding spot. People beyond those boundaries rarely see what's truly going on. No reporters, no surprise inspections, just silence, which is exactly what the establishment wants. And here's the key takeaway. Polar Owl is more than just a prison. It is a sign. It continues, "This is what happens if you cross us. We'll send you to the end of the earth, where even staying alive feels like punishment." The facility does not only keep people locked up, but it also locks up hope. So what do you think? Does Polar Owl sound like punishment, or something far worse? Butyrka Prison. The Tverskoy district of Moscow is home to Butyrka Prison, which is widely considered to be among the most famous jails in all of Russia. The building is instantly recognizable due to the fact that it seems to have been constructed in the 1800s and is towering over the street as if it were a relic from another period. For more than 140 years, individuals have been passing through this location prior to their trials. and to tell you the truth, the region has a reputation that is commensurate with its walls. One of the most well-known things about this institution is that it continues to be Moscow's largest pretrial detention facility, a state in which it is so full that it cannot hold much more. 1879 was the year when construction began on the current edifice, which is located close to the old Butyrsk Gate. In the past, Catherine the Great had her very own prison that was designed like a fortress here on the same grounds. Butyrka has been acquainted with a wide range of individuals over the course of its history. These individuals include political rebels, writers, notable leaders from revolutionary movements, and of course typical criminals. A number of notable individuals, including Vladimir Mayakovsky, Nikolai Bauman, and Felix Dzerzhinsky, the individual who would later establish the KGB, were included among its guests. How about the Great Purge that Stalin carried out? Without a doubt, everything was terrible. A large number of the approximately 20,000 hostages who were crammed inside at the same time did not make it out alive. Today, Butyrka continues to struggle with the issue of overcrowding. In point of fact, the warden freely revealed in 2019 that they had 2,292 people locked up in a space that was intended to house just 1,847 people. Do the math. That is almost 24% more than it is able to hold. Although it may not appear to be a particularly dreadful situation at first glance, there is a catch. Cells that were intended to hold 10 men regularly had more than 100. Take that into consideration for a second. There is not enough space to breathe, let alone sleep or rest. In what ways are things to live in? It is a true nightmare. As a result of the absence of air movement, the site becomes exceedingly hot throughout the summer months. The only sensations that can be felt are heat and sweat. There is such a lack of sanitation that it gives the impression of being a breeding ground for infectious diseases. Despite the fact that officials make an effort to keep sick inmates separated from one another, there's not enough room for this to be effective. Tuberculosis and HIV are both serious problems. With the combination of substandard medical care and substance addiction, you have a pressure cooker of potential health hazards that is just ready to burst. Nevertheless, the suffering does not end with the disease and the overpopulation of the facility. Former inmates have reported that they were subjected to persistent mistreatment at the hands of both guards and other inmates. For relatively minor offenses, and frequently for no reason at all, you could be sent in solitary confinement for a period of weeks. For the sole purpose of making a statement, guards would deliberately break into cells and damage personal items. What would you do if you required healthcare? All the best. People were required to wait for a considerable amount of time, and even after that, the treatments did not always work. In contrast, the problem with the food is an entirely different tale, and it is not a pleasant one. Take, for example, oatmeal that is cold and lumpy, bread that is not cooked through, and meat that smells even worse than the prison itself. Because they are unable to survive on that alone, prisoners are dependent on care packages that are sent to them by members of their families. In the absence of them, it is a double dose of malnutrition on top of everything else: weakened bodies, compromised immune systems, and no means to break the vicious cycle of illness that never seems to end. Kresty Prison. Right next to the Neva River in St. Petersburg is where you'll find this enormous and peculiar-looking prison. Over the course of more than a century, it was home to some of the most notorious criminals in the recorded history of Russia. The structures that make up Kresty Prison, which literally translates to crosses, were constructed in the form of a cross. In addition to the way it seemed, the stories that were concealed behind its walls made it stand out. People continue to use the name of the jail to discuss how brutal and harsh Russia's correctional system was, despite the fact that the prison was formally closed in 2017. This location was not always used as a prison. In the 1730s, it was nothing more than a large storage facility for alcoholic beverages. They went so far as to call it Wine Town. After that, in the late 1860s, the former wine warehouse was converted into a prison as a result of the anarchy that ensued after the Emancipation Reform of 1861. Anthony Tomishko, an architect, is responsible for creating that well-known cross-shaped design. According to him, it would stir up a desire for repentance in the captives by reminding them of the cross and their crimes. Isn't it a fairly gloomy thing to say? Kresty was home to a diverse group of criminals during the latter years of Imperial Russia, including more than simply thieves and murders. There were also revolutionaries and politicians that called this place home. This location has been associated with a number of notable figures, including Alexander Kerensky, who went on to become the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Pavel Milyukov, Leon Trotsky, and even Vladimir Antonov Ovsienko. To punish them for signing the Vyborg Manifesto in 1906, 200 members of the First State Duma were thrown into the prison. Take a moment to consider the language that those cells are using. During the year 1917, the February Revolution took place. Nothing remained the same. A group of laborers and soldiers commanded by Mikhail Kalinin made their way to Kresty, where they broke down the doors and liberated everyone who was inside. In the same way that the storming of the Bastille during the French Revolution was a symbolic gesture, this move was both a practical one, getting rid of police data on Bolshevik militants, and some other symbolic one. However, maybe the most amusing aspect is that not much actually changed. It is not that the prison stopped being political, rather, it just switched sides. As of this moment, individuals who were opposed to the Bolsheviks and were considered enemies of the revolution were being imprisoned. During Stalin's rule, the situation became significantly more dire. As a result of the purges that took place in the 1930s, Kresty included a large number of individuals who were suspected of conspiring against the government. There would be a queue of families waiting outside, anxious to give away supplies of food or clothing. Anna Akhmatova, who is widely considered to be one of the most well-known poets in Russia, was among the individuals who were waiting. In the hopes of delivering anything to her son, Lev Gumilev, she waited to be seen outside. A great number of individuals interpreted the prison gates as an indication of state terror. This location was never intended to accommodate the enormous people that it ended up stuffing into it. The initial concept planned for 960 cells, which had the capacity to house approximately 1,150 individuals. But is there an excessive number of people? It was present at all times. Think about what it would be like to be confined in a cramped cell with a great number of people that it was not designed to hold in a facility that is already notorious for its harshness and indifference. Having been moved to Kresty, you were aware that things were going to get more challenging. So after hearing about these prisons, I want to ask you, do you think they're truly about justice, or are they just made to crush the human spirit? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss what's coming next.